Hello guys, I just finished my biggest design project ever, maybe, the JEE Winter Conference. So now I'm going to explain you what I did, because I think it can be useful for you if you're a designer as well, or if you just want to learn how something like this is done. So I worked on this project closely with Mariana, which was the project manager of the Winter Conference. And the first thing that I did was to know if I needed to continue the heritage of the event. Meaning, should I follow the same guidelines or the same visual identity as last year or not? And since JEE had a rebranding and since the event had a new name, it made sense to give it a completely new brand identity. And then the next thing that I did with Mariana was I needed to know how the event would feel, meaning what we want participants to film, what we want participants to feel when they are in the event and before and after as well. So wanted to create like the environment. What was the environment of the event? I sent Mariana a couple questions asking about the golden circle, which is like why, how, and what. Like why is the event being organized? How are they doing that? Why and what is the final product? That's it. Then I asked her who is the audience, like who are the people that are coming, how are they, how do they think, and what do they do? Then I asked about the values. What are the most important values in the event, represented in the event? And then a couple of spectrums and quadrants that can tell you visually how the event feels. So, for example, you can have, is it for elites or is it for masses? Is it serious or playful? Is it conventional or rebel? Is it friendly or authoritarian? Or mature and classic and young and innovative? You can find these spectrums online wherever you want. And then a quadrant that goes from expressive to reserved, and then from classic to modern. And then she classified this, she did this, she sent me the answers. And then my job was to translate the brand, because this was the brand, what the people involved in the event would feel, how I would translate the brand into the visual identity. It's mainly visual, but it's not only visual. Let's call it brand design, okay? Then the team. What I learned about working in teams in this project is that the decision-making process is very important in the sense that you have to keep it fast. How do you do it? I think it's good if you minimize the number of people that are involved in the decision-making process. So I think it's important to listen to a lot of people and to send your designs to a lot of people to see what are the perspectives from the outside. But then I think it's also important to let the decisions be made only by a reduced number of people. So usually in the most common projects, it will be the designer and the project manager. This way things go faster and you don't need to try to please everyone with the decisions that you make. So when I knew what the event would feel like, the first thing that I looked for design-wise was typography. So I looked for a font that would fit the event, that brand that we wanted, but also I was looking for more like a tool. It means that I was looking for a font, not specifically a font that would transmit the brand, but a font that would work for me and avoid me being working for the font. What do I mean with this? It's like I was looking for flexibility. The most important thing for me was having a font with a lot of variations. It's a big font family. Why? Because usually when we work, especially with text, designers use a font for headlines and then a font for regular text. This is to have contrast and to make things more appealing to the eye. With a big font family, I can have contrast and a good font pairing at the same time. Because if, for example, big font families usually have, it goes from light to regular, medium, bold, and extra bold. And then big font families have also usually condensed variations, normal and extended variations. So the font can be more narrow or wider. So you can have contrast by pairing a wide version with a narrow version. And you also have a good pairing because the font essentially is the same. It's just different versions of the same thing. So it will probably work. And because the event, since it had so many different situations where the font would be used, it was important for me to have a lot of flexibility to work with the font and do everything that I want to do without having to go for extra fonts. But then I had a secondary font, which was this one. The purpose of this one was to bring a strong personality to the event. This one was the one that was not made to work, was more made to be seen. So the first one, the big font family that I found it on Adobe Fonts. It is Titling Gothic. I know maybe you don't have access to Adobe Fonts because it's a paid service, but you can find other big font families on Google Fonts as well. And then a second font, it's a free font. I found it on Pinterest. It's called Alt Mate. You can download it and use it. Then colors. There's something I think it's kind of special about this with the colors. It's because there is no specific color for the events. Because usually what I see in a lot of brands is that people and designers choose a specific color for the logo and the color for the everything. But there wasn't one color for the Winter Conference. In fact, there were 10,000 colors. So the main color was blue. And that was it. There was no blue. There was no specific blue. It was just blue. Why and how? Why? Again, because I needed flexibility. I didn't want to be stuck in one color because sometimes I need things to be darker, I need things to be brighter, I need things to have more saturation or less saturation. So what I did was I chose a color mode, a way of getting color, which is HSL. It means hue, saturation, and lightness. So I defined the hue value, which was 205, and then I had the saturation and lightness levels free for me to go around and experiment what I want. So you can see here. So if you use Figma or any other software, you can choose HSL, and then what I did was I defined the hue value, which was the blue, 205. And then the Winter Conference color is any of these blues. So these were the colors for the Winter Conference. These are 100 times 100, which is 10,000 blues. Then last point of this part, what was the style and the inspiration for this brand identity? Well, this was the time where I got back to my design history classes. I didn't get back to them, to the classes. I went back to what I learned in the classes. And then I investigated a little bit and I found that my idea was very close to the international typographic style, also known as Swiss style or Swiss design, which was a style very popular in the last century with very big principles on readability and objectivity. So my ideas, what I had in mind, were kind of close to this feeling or to this way of organizing information. And then my actual inspiration for everything that I did, or at least in the beginning, was a design that was made for the London Fashion Week. You can see that the logo is kind of the same, but you can see that they use one font for like the regular text or the things that they need to actually communicate, and then they have this secondary font where they draw a lot of personality and a lot of like the life of the whole design system is brought by this font, which is very wavy, like it's harder to read. It works more like decoration and shapes rather than an actual font to be read. And that's what I wanted with the Alt Mate font that I chose. So this is it for now. I will cover everything else on other videos. I will keep it like this for now because I want you to ask questions so that I can change and adapt what I'm going to say in the following videos. according to what you say and your feedback. So I hope this is useful. Ask questions. If you want me to teach you or to explain how I did something, please tell me. And I hope you have a nice day.